Hi, this is Sherry Shabowski from medicaleducationinminutes.com. Today we're going to be talking about cellular adaptation to stressors. Cellular adaptation is basically just a response to stress. It is meant to be temporary, reversible, and it is unsustainable. What are the main types of cellular adaptation? Well, here you see the normal cells. Then you see atrophy, hypertrophy, hyperplasia, metaplasia, and dysplasia. Let's go through them in greater detail. Let's start with atrophy. Basically follows the idea that if you don't use it, you'll lose it. You get a decrease in the normal cell size. A physiologic example would be the thymus, which is training T cells in newborns so that the immune system is ready for what it has to deal with. But once all your T cells are trained, you really don't need your thymus so much. So it atrophies and becomes very, very small. A pathologic example would be that of having a broken leg put in a cast for 6 weeks without movement. When that cast comes off, your legs don't even match. The muscular has shrunken up so much that the legs don't even look like they belong to the same person. That's atrophy. Hypertrophy is when normal cells have a compensatory increase in size. A physiologic example would be the response to weightlifting. When there's people who want to pump up their muscles, they're not actually making more muscle, they're just making larger muscle cells, hypertrophic muscle cells. In the case of a pathologic example, you have the response to chronic severe hypertension, where the muscle of the ventricle tries to fight against that enormous blood pressure, and they become hypertrophic in order to try to manage it. This cannot be sustained. Hyperplasia is an increase in the number of normal cells, adding to the overall size of the organ. Typically, it occurs in response to hormones. Hyperplasia occurs due to altered gene expression, upregulating genes that promote cell division and downregulating inhibitors. Sounds a little bit like those cells could get out of control, no? All right, metaplasia magic. This is nuts. In response to chronic stress, a fully differentiated cell, in this case in the picture, you'll see respiratory epithelium, may turn into a more tolerant, fully differentiated cell, like in the picture, squamous epithelium. Based on alteration in gene expression that goes way back to the stem cell, flipping the selector gene or master switch that influences cell differentiation. So basically, here you have respiratory epithelium in your bronchi. Chronic smoke, chronic smoke, chronic smoking leads to chronic irritation that will cause the switch to flip. Now that respiratory epithelium is completely replaced by squamous epithelium. That's so crazy, right? But again, it's not meant to be sustained. And you might not be surprised to learn that most bronchial cancers are of squamous cell origin. Dysplasia is related to mutations or alterations in gene sequences that promote oncogenes and deactivate tumor suppression genes. Not so much different than hyperplasia, but in this case, you wind up with very atypical cells. You get changes in size, shape, and the organization of the cells. You get increased production of abnormal cells. These kind of sound a little bit like cancer, no? Well, the cells change their characteristics. They're expressing genes differently than they usually do. They're increasing the number of cells being made, and the organization of the cells is decreased. In fact, the plasias are all considered pre-neoplastic or precancerous. Cell regulation and expression is altered in all of them. Adaptation is meant to be temporary and reversible. It is not able to be sustained. If it's forced to be sustained, it can turn into cancer. Persistent stress causes alterations in gene expression that can lead to anaplasia. In anaplasia, which is in fact cancer, cells have very poor differentiation. They lose their normal morphologic characteristics of their specialized mature cell and their organization or orientation with respect to each other. The characteristics of the cell are that they have nuclear pleomorphism. Sometimes they have multiple nuclei, sometimes the nuclei just become huge. This causes an altered nucleus to cytoplasm ratio with an enormous nucleus. And then you have a really high proliferation index. That huge nucleus is put to work, and all it's focused on is proliferation. It's not thinking about differentiation or specialization of the cell. Nope, just making more and more and more big blobs of cells. All right, thank you for learning with me today. Do you like this content? Well, I have full courses that will help you prepare for medical training, and they are available at medicaleducationinminutes.com. For more shorts like this, follow on Facebook and YouTube. And please like and subscribe. It really encourages me to make more. Have a nice day. See you next time.